Hey guys, how's it going? So, a lot of people are wondering where I get my news. Because a lot of people are just sort of like just plugged into the mainstream media and they're looking for alt news outlets or places where they can actually find what's going on. Because I think that we can all agree that the mainstream media is just spouting lies. I mean, they just spout the biggest whoppers that you can imagine, right? And it's been going on. I mean, let me phrase this. I've noticed this since '84 because I would read mainstream news articles, American and European news articles about Chile under the Pinochet dictatorship. And I was living there, and I would read this stuff and say, this does not conform to the reality I am observing. And so that's when I got red-pilled about the mainstream media. But a lot of people are sort of like waking up as of late, a lot of people, because of the various crises that have happened as of late. And so I thought that it would be a good idea to, just as I did a Ukraine conflict primer, I'm going to do a primer on news outlets, alt news outlets, that you should follow. Perhaps you follow some of them or all of them, and it'll just confirm your opinion. Or else, perhaps you've never heard of these sites, or it might be a good way that you could pass this video along to somebody who wants to be better informed about what's actually going on. Now, what's interesting about all these blogs, these YouTube channels, and these independent commentators that I'm going to enumerate is that they don't all agree. A lot of times they come at things from very different points of view. And that's a good thing, because that way you can contrast and compare. When they're all pretty much saying the same thing, then you know that's pretty much on the money. And when they differ, a lot of times the differences are what's interesting. Now, all of these outlets that I'm going to enumerate, they are just, you know, the mainstream is not going to touch them with a 10-foot pole because it shows up their lies. That's why these sites, these outlets, are anathema to the mainstream and to mainstream politicians for that matter too. So let me enumerate them, and I'm going to give like brief discussions of each of them. Now the links to all of them are in the description below, so you should have no trouble finding them, and they're really fascinating. So anyway, here we go. Now the first site that you should, the first blog site is Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge, I've been following them since 2010, 2008 maybe. I mean, I started paying attention to alt news outlets for the financial crisis in 2008. When that whole shit show was going down, that's when I started looking at the alt commentary community. And Zero Hedge is a stalwart. You know, they've been around since forever. And they put up, maybe a dozen or two posts per day about all kinds of different news items. And often as not, they dig up what's actually going on. It's slanted towards finance, but not because of it will you not hear some important information about all kinds of things, including geopolitics. So Zero Hedge. Then there's Naked Capitalism, run by my friend Eve Smith. Naked Capitalism is a blog that's been around since, I think, 2006. And I picked up on Naked Capitalism around, I want to say 2009 maybe. I've posted some pieces with Naked Capitalism. And I've known Eve since then. And she's a great person. And she's actually been on my roundtable a couple of times. She's superb. And Naked Capitalism, how can I put it? There is it's more towards economics, and there is a slant towards MMT, but at the same time, Eve is a very honest broker, and she tries to be as honest and truthful as possible. So she's unwilling to slant the news and perspective that she presents for the sake of her own biases, which is admirable. So, Naked Capitalism. The Vineyard of the Soccer is kind of like an aggregate of a lot of interesting stuff that appears. Okay, Andre, who runs the Vineyard of the Soccer, you know, he has his own taste. It's his site, and he puts whatever he thinks is interesting. And a lot of times what he puts up as interesting is stuff that I find interesting, and you probably will too. Moon of Alabama, another site that I've been following since donkey's years. It's run by Bernard, who is a former German artillery officer, I believe. He keeps himself to himself, but Moon of Alabama is just a fantastic blog site. And insofar as the conflict is concerned, I mean, it really is second to none, especially considering Bernard's military background. that he's able to say things and make inferences and point out things that are really important and ignore the bullshit. So, Moon of Alabama. Dancing with Bears is run by John Helmer. Now, John Helmer is this journalist in Russia. He's the longest-serving foreign correspondent in Russia, and he has this site, Dancing with Bears, and he is incredibly well-connected in Russia. And so a lot of times he'll post stuff that is extremely accurate as to the internal thinking of what's going on in Russia. Sometimes his posts are a little bit long-winded, not going to lie, but me too. So, there's that sin enough to go around for everyone, I suppose. But John Helmer, Dancing with Bears, definitely. And of the blogs that you'll find on a website is Sonar 21, run also by my friend Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson is a former CIA officer. And Sonar 21 is just really smart. Really, the posts are always brief, they're dailies, and they're right on the money. Oh, and I forgot to mention something to harken back to Naked Capitalism. Naked Capitalism every day puts out the first post of the day, Eastern Standard Time, that they put up is links of the day, and they are fantastic. The links that they put up, that Eve Smith puts up on Naked Capitalism, consistently just covers just all kinds of very interesting information. So even if you don't really read everything on Naked Capitalism, you should read the links of the day, definitely. As to Sonar 21, Larry Johnson's website, well, he puts out just one post a day. They're always brief, but they're always on the money. And because he's a CIA analyst and because of the conflict and what's going on, he has a very insightful view on events. And he's completely against the narrative. I mean, he's a total dissident, right? And so that's why I highly recommend Sonar 21, because he's going to give you a truth as to what's going on. Now, insofar as YouTube channels are concerned, the first one and the granddaddy of the dissident community would be the Duran. It's run by Alex Christoforou and Alexander Mercouris, rather. And there are actually three channels in the Duran. There's the Duran channel, where there's the two of them. Then there's Alex Christoforou's channel, and there's Alexander Mercouris' channel. Okay? Now, I would recommend you subscribe to all three. Now, the Duran sort of like covers whatever is going on, like multiple stories. It's usually a video a day, and often a live stream with an invited guest. I've been on that show several times. And they cover like multiple stories during the day. Now, Alex Christoforou, on his channel, he does these famous walk and talks. He does them in Cyprus and in Greece, where he lives. And he goes to all kinds of interesting places, actually. It's almost like a tourism video on the one hand, and on the other hand, he's giving you the bullet points of the day, insofar as the best information or the most important things that are going on in that particular day. He usually updates at least once, sometimes twice, and on a few times he's done it even 3 times. But it's for sure one video a day. Now, Alexander Mercouris does these deep dive, 1 hour long videos that analyze a particular situation that's going on at that time. Okay, these are 1 hour videos. What do you think? It's going to be a very deep dive. Pro tip: if you put it on twice speed, you're not going to miss a thing. And it'll be half an hour as opposed to an hour watching it. But I watch all 3 of those channels religiously. Now, the next YouTube channel is the New Atlas, run by Brian Berletic. Brian Berletic is a former Marine. He lives out in Thailand. He's married there. He's got a family, and you watch him, and he's a very, very serious, extremely meticulous individual who does these usually daily vlogs. And they cover some aspect of the geopolitical situation. And insofar as the military situation is concerned, insofar as the Ukraine conflict, he is just very meticulous about counting up all the weapons that are being sent, why they matter or don't matter, as the case may be, the problems with these weapons. And he is aces insofar as analyzing weapons, but also the general geopolitical situation. So, the New Atlas. Then there's I, Earl Grey, run by a Brit called Mike Jones. And we all tease him because he has this name that is so anonymous. We all say, oh, he's actually like some sort of intelligence agent or some James Bond figure. Mike Jones, but Mike is a terrific guy. He lives in St. Petersburg, and he's married, and I do believe they have a child, but I am not sure about that, but that doesn't matter. The point is that I. Earl Grey's channel, Mike Jones, he gives sort of like an overview of the news, but he can also tell you quite a bit about what's going on in Russia right now. And that's why it's worth following him there. Now, the next one is the Military Summary channel, run by Dima. Now, Military Summary, he gives these meticulous daily videos describing the changing tactical situation on the ground in the Ukraine conflict. I mean, it is meticulous, every day relentlessly. And he will show you the various sources and the various maps to show more or less what is going on the ground on a day-to-day basis. Now, a lot of people criticize Dima because sometimes when he speculates, Yves Smith said that sometimes Dima gets ahead of his skis, which is a very apt metaphor. For sometimes Dima's speculations, we're not so sure about them, but he always makes clear that he is speculating, that it's just an idea he has, and he never presses it. He's always very focused on the minutiae on the ground insofar as combat and sort of in terms of advances or retreats, number of soldiers, that sort of thing. So Military Summary, if you want to know like on the daily basis what's going on the conflict in Ukraine, Military Summary channel with Dima is where you want to be. The other one that's coming on strong is one called Weeb Union, run by a guy called Weeb. And he's in Denmark, and he is also following the military minutiae very, very carefully. But he tends to release, perhaps 2 or sometimes 3 videos and fairly short ones. Dima's channel, Military Summary, will do like a 20-minute to 25, sometimes even 30-minute video discussing the overall military situation on the ground in Ukraine, whereas Weeb Union tends to do short videos that'll be like 2 to 5 minutes and just like, this is happening, that's happening, and it's just very quick and throwaway almost, but it gives you, again, a very accurate assessment of what's going on the ground. Now, George Galloway and the mother of all talk shows is another one that you want to subscribe to. George brings on his channel all kinds of very, very interesting people from a wide gamut of perspectives, but they're all dissidents, and that's the key issue. George Galloway is a former Labour politician, and he has now transitioned into having this show, and it's fantastic. The mother of all talk shows is the mother of all talk shows. You should definitely follow him. And the guests that he has every week are just fantastic. So check him out. And finally, of the YouTube channels, there's the Gray Zone, run by Max Blumenthal. And I think he's partnered up with Aaron Mate, but I'm not sure about it. Actually, I forgot, but it doesn't matter. The point is, both of them are on the Gray Zone. And the Gray Zone is sort of like investigative journalism. And it is exceedingly honest and trying to portray things as they actually are. Of all the channels I've mentioned, I would say the Gray Zone is the closest to the mainstream, but at the same time, they are dissidents because they are relentlessly trying to show the actual facts on the ground as opposed to any kind of narrative, which is greatly appreciated. Now, insofar as independent commentators are concerned, these are guys who sort of like will appear throughout the internet. And where to find them consistently is kind of like hit or miss sometimes, or sometimes it's just like, they have like a main channel, if you will, but it's not particularly very good. It's more interesting when they sort of like pop up here and there. The first one is, of course, Colonel Douglas McGregor, who consistently appears on Judge Napolitano's show Judging Freedom. Douglas McGregor is a former colonel of the U.S. Army, retired. He was Donald Trump's military advisor, and he was supposed to be the ambassador to Germany. Anyway, he is a guy who's very plugged in insofar as the military situation is concerned. He's plugged into the intelligence services in the United States. He's got a lot of contacts. A lot of people like him and respect him. He's extremely sober. And so what's interesting is that whenever he says something, you can take it to the bank. And the guy is just really, that's the thing. He's sober, and he never talks out of his ass. Okay? Now, the next one, inevitably, is a person that I personally despise, but that you should follow, which is Scott Ritter. Scott Ritter is a former weapons inspector for the United Nations, and he was the man who, back in the day, before the 2003 war in Iraq, he said, there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It's bullshit. He was the only guy telling the truth at that time. Unfortunately, Mr. Ritter is, I personally, like I say, I despise him, because what tends to happen is that he wants to be first with news and say something very provocative. And so when I was arrested by the SBU, he claimed that I had been tortured and murdered, that's what had happened to me, which was extremely disconcerting to a lot of people who loved me very much. And he had no evidence whatsoever. Of course, I wasn't tortured and murdered, insofar as like Aiden Aslan, that UK prisoner, he also said that, he had been killed by the Russians on the day before the Russians swapped him in a POW swap. So the problem with Scott Ritter is that a lot of times he wants to be the center of attention, and he wants to seem to be in the know. I mean, Douglas McGregor is actually in the know. Scott Ritter is not in the know, but Scott Ritter wants to pretend that he's in the know. And so a lot of times he'll say things that are just, fantastical. One other commentary guy once said that Scott Ritter is always sure that he's right, but not often correct. But his analysis is exceptionally good. He has an exceptionally good eye for seeing how things are currently and describing the motivations that have led to the current situation and the reasons that something has happened at this time. So even though I personally despise him, he's somebody that you should follow, because a lot of things that he says, they're accurate. But if he claims to know some insider information or breaking news, he's probably making it up. Then there's Pepe Escobar. Pepe Escobar is sort of like the Hunter Thompson, rather. Hunter Biden, no. He's the Hunter Thompson of the geopolitical sphere. He is, I adore him. He is a smart man. He's Brazilian, career journalist. He works out of Paris and Istanbul, and he goes to all kinds of places, and he gets the real scoop on what's actually going on the ground. He is definitely somebody that you want to be following, because his writing style is very much Hunter Thompson gonzo kind of journalism, almost stream of consciousness. But it is exceptionally illuminating, sharp analysis. He's back on Twitter. He's definitely somebody to be following there. And so, yeah. So anyway, these are the people that I think that you should follow if you are interested in the alt commentary community. These are all very, very smart people. And when they make mistakes, except for the guy I claim to despise, except for that guy, whenever they make a mistake, they always say, oh, I screwed up. It was my mistake. I mean, they're very honest in that regard. Okay? And they're always striving to give the correct information. So I suggest that you follow them. They're fantastic. Like I said, links are in the description below. And I hope that these links to these people will help you better understand what's going on.